Done talking about Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad. I'm not done talking about this rematch. I know on Saturday I posted my raw reaction, but I didn't really give an analysis of the fight. It was basically just my raw reaction to the card, my raw reaction to the main event. And if I'm being honest, in comparison to other upsets, I'm not really all that surprised that Belal Muhammad won. I am a little bit surprised about how easy it was, but when it comes to upsets, it just really wasn't all that surprising. And the main reason why it wasn't that shocking to me is because a lot of the things, a lot of my critiques about Leon Edwards' style came to be true and honestly got exposed. Like, Leon got exposed in this fight, and I know people like to throw around that word a lot when a fighter loses. Oh, they got exposed. Oh, they got exposed. They got fraud checked. But this is a case where Leon actually got fraud checked. Like, all of the mistakes, all the things that he gets away with in his style got exposed by Belal Muhammad here. It wasn't an off night. It wasn't that Leon fought at 5 a.m. because Belal also had to fight at 5 a.m. The rest of the card also had to fight, in weird times. So that's not it. So a lot of people are trying to make excuses for Leon Edwards in this fight. And the thing is, it's not only that he lost, man. Belal Muhammad outstruck him, outgrappled him, had the better cardio, had the better fight IQ, had the better game plan. That's something to consider as well. He had a lot more grit than Leon Edwards. And from the first minute of the fight, you could tell that Leon was taken aback by Belal Muhammad's pressure. And his only response was to move back up against the cage and basically just shell up with his weird elbow shell. And then Belal gets the first takedown 20 seconds into the fight, a double leg takedown, which was incredibly easy. And Leon is able to get back up, actually, lands pretty good knees in the clinch, but his dumbass shoots for a takedown. And that's just one prime example of Leon's bad fight IQ. And it's actually quite interesting because if you guys follow me on Twitter, I actually did mention a couple of days before that fight, when I was rewatching their first fight, when I was rewatching their first encounter, I noticed that one of the things that happened was that Leon, after he heard Belal Muhammad with the head kick, he tried to land an onslaught of punches on Belal, and then he goes for a takedown on Belal. And rewatching that, I was like, man, that was just such a stupid moment from Leon Edwards. And I was also reminded of his fight against Colby Covington in the 5th round, where he tried to prove a point by trying to out-grapple Colby Covington, and it backfired. So this isn't the first time that Leon shows that he has bad fight IQ, and I feel like it was very prevalent in this fight. Like, why would you try to out-grapple Belal Muhammad when you get back up to your feet? No, you want to get in striking range so you could actually try to outstrike Belal Muhammad, where you clearly have an advantage. At least that in theory, right? Because Belal Muhammad showed pretty good boxing, had a pretty solid jab, a pretty good 1-2, did a good job of switching stances, even landing his own head kicks, guys. And Leon just did not know how to deal with that. Like, he was trying to throw his head kicks, but they were incredibly telegraphed. Belal was doing such a good job of just blocking those head kicks and blocking those body kicks. And even when Leon would land, what would Belal do? He would take a step back, and then he would start pressuring again, and Leon just couldn't function. Like, that is why I call him an NPC, because he's a fucking robot, for better and for worse. And once you disrupt the program, once you do something that is not normal for Leon, he just doesn't know how to deal with it. He moves his back up against the fence, and then he starts shelling up with his elbows, which is absolutely terrible, because you don't know what your opponent is doing when you're blocking. It almost looked like his eyes were closed, and that's why it was so easy for Belal Muhammad to get those takedowns. Like, they were just coming so easy, because every time Leon would get pressure up against the fence, he would stay in that position, freeze up, and then Belal would go for the takedown. It was just so fucking easy. Like, that's how easy it was to beat somebody like Leon Edwards. And to be totally honest with you, the only reason why Kamaru Usman didn't beat him in the trilogy is honestly because I think Kamaru Usman just didn't have that confidence. I think he was worried about getting knocked out. But in theory, Leon hasn't really changed all that much. Yes, he's always been a very technical fighter. He's always been a point fighter. And I'm not saying he's not skilled when it comes to the striking or that he doesn't have good grappling. But there's a big problem with his style. He doesn't have a lot of grit. His boxing isn't all that good. He doesn't have a lot of pop in his punches. Yes, he's very fast, but Leon relies a lot on his setups, on his range. And if you're able to close that range like Belal Muhammad was able to, he doesn't have anything for you. He really doesn't have anything for you And Belal Muhammad showed that, like, it was a perfectly executed game plan. And, Belal did talk about before going into this fight that he was training with Makhachev, the Russians, the Dagestani brothers. And he was saying how, they had broken down Leon Edwards so much. And honestly, it just shows you how smart these Dagestani fighters are to methodically break down Leon Edwards in this fight. Like, Belal Muhammad's game plan was perfect. Like, absolutely perfect. I know Leon had moments. Obviously, he landed that elbow in the 5th round, and there was times where, like, in that 3rd round, he was able to reverse the takedown and then, had Belal Muhammad's back. But besides a couple moments that Leon had, even on the feet, he landed like a pretty good left hook, I believe, in that 1st round. Besides a couple moments, like, Belal Muhammad had just a perfect game plan. Just pressure him, let's box, move you up against the fence, and he knew that Leon was just gonna put his back up against the fence and just stay there and start blocking punches instead of moving to the side or just making sure you don't have your back up against the fence, which he did a lot in the Kamaru Usman rematch. And we've seen that is still a flaw that Leon Edwards has in his game that he just hasn't fixed. And honestly, I don't think Leon ever becomes champion again. I really don't. I think Leon Edwards' style has been cracked. Like, I think a lot of fighters are going to take advantage of this. The fact that they know, okay, if I'm able to pressure, if I'm able to this, like, Leon just doesn't have the best fight IQ. Like I said, there was moments where he got back up to his feet, and instead of, like, landing knees, and he did land some knees in that 1st round, but he would try to prove a point and try to out-grapple Belal Muhammad, where that's not your strength. Yes, you're a good grappling. Yes, you learn good grappling, but where you have an advantage is in the striking against Belal. And you would try to grapple with him. Like, to me, that was retarded, because even though perhaps you're able to get Belal in a bad position, you're going to tire yourself out, and that's not how you're going to win in the judges' scorecards. Like, for example, a lot of these rounds, it was where, like, Belal would shoot a takedown. He would get it at the beginning of the round. He was, he had Leon, like, controlling Leon for 2-3 minutes of that round. And then maybe, like, the last 40 seconds, then Leon would get back up to his feet. And instead of, like, pushing Belal away... instead of pushing Belal away, he would, like, try to grapple or just clinch up. And it's like, no, dumbass, you need to strike. You need to fucking strike. And it just shows you that Leon just doesn't have the best fight IQ. We already knew he didn't have a lot of grit. I mean, Colby Covington talked so much shit about his dad, and he still couldn't go out there and really finish Colby. Like, it's kind of embarrassing, because the worst version of Colby Covington came out there. And honestly, if I'm Colby Covington and I'm watching this fight, he probably hates himself, because he's probably like, man, I could have done that. And honestly, Colby could have done that, but to give Belal Muhammad credit, he is a lot stronger than Colby Covington. His striking improved so much. Like, his boxing looked very crisp. And honestly, it reminded me a little bit of Islam Makhachev's striking, where he sets up the jab, comes over the top. His bobbing and weaving was absolutely incredible. Every time Leon would move up to the side, Belal would throw a good left hook that would intercept Edwards' movement. So he did such a good job in this fight. And credit to Belal Muhammad. Like I said in my Raw reaction video, I don't have a particular investment, or I'm not invested too much in Belal Muhammad or in Leon Edwards. I'm just curious to see what would happen in the fight. And if I'm being honest, I kind of would have preferred to see both of the guys get knocked out, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Leon or Belal, or just the welterweight division. I think the welterweight division is a very lackluster division. I don't really particularly care for that division. I know Shavkat Ramonov is next, but the point of this video is just to tell you guys that I just feel like Leon Edwards was actually exposed. He was fraud checked. His style has been, cracked. And when he returns, like, if he fights an Ian Gary, a JDM, which, I mean, those are good style matchups for Leon Edwards, I still believe that he's going to have to change his style a lot. Like, he's going to have to improve in his boxing. He's going to have to do something about his movement. And he has to do something about his grit and his pace, man. Because if you're able to walk Leon forward, all he's going to do is switch stances and move backwards. And he just doesn't have the power to, like, really earn the respect of his opponents. Like, we saw Belal ate a lot of shots and just kept walking forward, man. And I feel like if Leon's the one pressuring you, like he did against Colby, then I feel like his punches, his kicks just have a lot more impact. And, the thing is that Leon is not a boxer. He's more of a kickboxer. He sets up his punches with his kicks. And the thing about Leon as well is that he throws a lot of single shots. Like, he doesn't really throw in combinations. He's not a guy that, throwing a head kick and then a right hand. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, he'll throw a body kick and then he'll move, switch stances, and then maybe a jab, 1-2. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not really throwing in combinations, which makes him very predictable, and it also makes it easier to pressure a guy like that because he's not really throwing a bunch of combinations on you. So for the most part, Belal Muhammad didn't really need to cover up because he knew, okay, this guy's gonna throw a body kick and then he's gonna move backwards and then move around, and that's the opportunity. That time is where I can pressure him and let go of my hands, and that's exactly what Belal Muhammad did, which was absolutely incredible. And for Belal, guys, I think he should fight Shavkat Rakhmonov. I hope it's not that soon. I think Belal needs some time to rest and actually like celebrate this victory. I mean, it's a huge victory for his career. And I think Leon needs to change his style. Honestly, if they were to do a trilogy, I think Belal beats him again. I even think maybe an Usman beats him again. But the problem with Usman is that he's a lot older. I don't think his confidence is all there. I actually don't think Usman's chin is as bad as people make it out to seem. But I mean, we don't know how Kamaru Usman looks these days. He hasn't fought in quite a while. And a lot of people were saying that they want Kamaru Usman to get a title shot against Belal Muhammad. Absolutely fucking not. Kamaru Usman hasn't done shit. He hasn't fought anybody. And this time off, he probably should have fought somebody like Shavkat Rakhmonov if he really wanted to get back to the title picture. And to me, it just seems like he's privileged. Like, he just wants to be privileged. Oh, now because he's a new champ and I was a long reigning champion 2-3 years ago, I deserve a title shot. He's doing exactly what Colby Covington did. And to be honest with you, it's absolutely pathetic. Like, if Usman really wants to fight for the title, he needs to fight somebody. He needs to fight an Ian Gary. He needs to fight a Shavkat Rakhmonov. He needs to fight a JDM. If, Shavkat is most likely going to get the title shot next, then they should make JDM versus Kamaru Usman. Maybe Ian Gary versus Leon Edwards. I think that would be some good fights. I mean, I don't really care that much about the welterweight division, but I still believe that, like, it's pretty impressive what Belal Muhammad was able to do. Even though, like I said, I'm not surprised. I'm honestly not surprised because these are not mistakes that Leon just recently made. Like, these are mistakes that he's been making with his style since forever. Like, Leon has always fought this way, and that's why Kamaru Usman was doing so good in that rematch. Honestly, he was doing so good in that rematch, and I always thought, look, a lot of people talk about Leon like he's this great striker, and yes, he's a good point fighter, but he doesn't have a lot of power. He's not knocking guys out left and right. He doesn't throw, he doesn't have a high volume. He doesn't have high pace. He doesn't throw in combinations. So there's a lot of mistakes. I mean, not mistakes necessarily, but there's a lot wrong or a lot that can be exposed in Leon's Edwards striking style. And Belal Muhammad did just that.